Imagine you are standing on a quiet early Triassic coastline. Moonlight spills over the damp reefs. Waves crash against the shore again and again, carrying salty foam. Right between the tides of life and death, a slender figure slowly crawls out of the water. Its movements carry a contradictory grace and clumsiness. It has a crocodile-like body, yet a snake-like long neck. Its limbs are like paddles, yet still retain sharp claws. Tonight, by the softly flickering firelight, let us step into its true life, with this story that needs no memorizing. Its name is Nothosaurus, a wanderer living in the gap between two worlds. It refuses to sink completely into the unfathomable ocean, yet cannot fully let go of its attachment to dry land. This semi-aquatic, semi-terrestrial identity burdens it with extreme survival pressure in that fiercely competitive era. Its entire life is a game played on the edge of land and sea, a lonely epic of being an intermediate state. Close your eyes, follow the rhythm of the tides, and feel the breath of that distant age. In the early Triassic period, the world had just woken up from a great catastrophe, and power was being redistributed between the ocean and the land. For the Nothosaurus, the pressure of survival did not come from a specific enemy, but from an omnipresent anxiety. It stood on the reefs, watching the increasingly massive predators in the deep sea, then turned back to look at the early dinosaurs rising continuously on the inland. It found itself in an awkward gap. In the water, it was not as fast as its relatives that had fully evolved fins. On land, the structure of its limbs destined it to not run for a long time. This marginalized situation forced the Nothosaurus to evolve an extremely forbearing survival logic. Its eyes were located on the top of its head, allowing it to hide its body in the shadows of the shallows like modern hippopotamuses or crocodiles, only showing its eyes to peek at the world. With every breath, it had to calculate the direction of the ocean currents, and the changes in the land wind direction. It preyed on small fish trapped in puddles by the high tide, or timid small beasts that came to the shore to drink water. This opportunistic way of survival made the Nothosaurus' eyes always carry a sense of alertness and exhaustion. It was not a ruler, but an extremely skilled thief, stealing a little living space from the gaps of fate. Its entire life was almost spent in such constant observation and waiting. If you could penetrate the mist of time and observe a day in the life of an adult Nothosaurus, you would feel a profound sense of oppression. It experiences several physical crossings. Every day. When the scorching sun burns the reefs, its skin begins to dry out, and it must endure the burning pain to crawl toward the cold, glistening seawater. But when it sinks into the sea, the coldness and darkness of the deep ocean make it, a creature that breathes air, feel an urgent sense of unease. It has to surface frequently, and that long neck becomes its most fragile yet resilient lifeline. In the Middle Triassic period, the climate became volatile, and the advance and retreat of the coastline were unpredictable, constantly shrinking the living space of the Nothosaurus. Sometimes it would stay alone in a cave washed by storms, listening to the violent thunder outside, curling its long neck beside its thick body. At such times, the Nothosaurus displays an amazing psychological resilience. It can remain motionless in the dark for days, sustaining its life with an extremely low metabolism. This compromise with the environment allowed it to survive the aftershocks of various mass extinctions, but it also destined it to never stand at the top of the food chain. Its loneliness is structural. There is no noise of competition, no hustle of survival, only the endless, lonely vigil at the junction of land and sea. It is like an observer of an era, quietly watching the rise and fall of all living things around it. Perhaps the most painful moment in the Nothosaurus' life is the time of reproduction. As a creature that still needs to lay eggs on land, it must leave the water, its protective haven, at the most dangerous time of each season. Dragging its heavy body, it leaves deep, twisted tracks on the sand, a moment of utmost clumsiness and helplessness in its life. It must evade the terrestrial predators wandering along the shore, searching for a slightly safer sand burrow for its offspring. On those nights, the Nothosaurus will stand guard beside the nest, gazing at the sand under the moonlight. Its eyes, adapted to dim light, reveal not ferocity, but a nearly pitiful vigilance. Once the young hatch, those tiny Nothosaurus must rush toward the sea immediately. That short stretch of beach becomes the first gate of death in their lives. The adult Nothosaurus will stand by the water's edge, using its long neck and rows of fine teeth to fend off some predators for its young. But this is a futile tenderness. It cannot save all its offspring. Most of the young Nothosaurus disappear into the darkness before their bodies touch the waves. This cost of survival, brought on by its semi-aquatic identity, is an eternal curse for the Nothosaurus population. Trapped on that thin strip of coastline, they can neither fully move onto land nor, like the later ichthyosaurs, give birth to live young in the sea. This sense of evolutionary stagnation shrouds the Nothosaurus' fate in a veil of melancholy. As the Triassic entered its late stage, deep sea competition reached a white-hot intensity. More specialized sauropterygians and ichthyosaurs seized every ecological niche, and the Nothosaurus' well-rounded yet mediocre traits became its fatal weakness. It grew harder and harder to hunt prey, and the shallow shores, once its own territory, were occupied by mightier predators. The era no longer needed a hesitant middleman. Its habitat was nibbled away little by little, retreating from open coastlines to isolated lagoons, and finally to remote island edges. Under extreme pressure, tragic changes began to take place in the Nothosaurus body. To catch fish in deeper waters, it had to expend far more energy, while threats on land made resting ashore nothing short of a luxury. It began to sleep underwater frequently, a highly dangerous habit for an air-breathing reptile. We can picture the last Nothosaurus passing away on a quiet night, utterly exhausted by long-term malnutrition and survival anxiety. It closed its eyes in a rocky crevice of the shallows. The tide rose gently. It should have woken and moved to higher ground, yet that night, it chose to let go. Its slender body drifted with the ebb tide into the boundless dark ocean, fading into a speck of dust. Its extinction stirred no ripples. A wanderer had finally ceased its wandering. Today, the Triassic coastline has long turned into cold fossils, and the Nothosaurus' loneliness has settled into the veins of stone. As we gaze at its twisted, slender skeleton beneath museum lights, can we feel that lingering soul wandering between life and death? The Nothosaurus answers the paradox left at the beginning. Living in the gaps is both a shield and a slow suicide. It traded hundreds of millions of years of slumber for a moment of our reflection tonight. In fact, everyone has their own Nothosaurus moment in life, hesitating between choices and fate, wandering between two worlds. But none of that matters anymore. Tonight, all survival anxiety, all struggles between land and sea, have faded away. The world is quiet. The tides have calmed. The Nothosaurus has finally found its balance in that distant age, and it is time for you to let go of all hesitation and weariness. Do not dwell on unfinished choices. Do not worry about the invisible boundaries ahead. Just as the Nothosaurus finally melted into the gentle waves, let your consciousness melt into this deep dream. Good night. May you have a dream as quiet and profound as the deep sea.